The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters radio show was originally broadcast on June 29th, 2021.
Aloha and welcome, Maui, to the Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters radio show, sponsored by Mokulele Airlines and Sherry Reeve Gallery and Gifts. I'm your host, Pamela Tumpot, president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, and today we're going to cover Hawaii's economic recovery, learn a little bit about Maui Ocean Center Marine Institute, and meet the Maui Cookie Lady. We're going to start off this morning with Dr. Carl Bonham. Dr. Bonham is a founding member of UHERO, which is U-H-E-R-O. That's the acronym for the Economic Research Organization at the University of Hawaii. It was founded in 1997, and Carl currently serves as UHERO's executive director and professor of economics. Carl's research interests include macroeconomics, applied econometrics, and forecasting, tourism economics, and the Hawaii economy. Aloha and good morning, Dr. Bonham. How are you?
Aloha. I'm doing great. Thank you, Pam.
So glad to have you on the show. You and I have gotten to see a lot of each other during COVID on Speaker Saiki's House Select Committee. And we all cherish all of the economic research you're doing. Can you start us off this morning by talking to the audience a little bit about something near and dear to our heart, which is this targeting and trying to get fully vaccinated, looking at 75% of the state population with either a 2-shot or 1-shot vaccine. When do you think we're going to reach that goal, and can you share with everybody why you feel that's important?
Oh, well, we can start with the last question. Clearly, this is incredibly important, and everything from, if you think about the crowds that we're experiencing in businesses and in restaurants and the difficulty that we're still experiencing because of some of the COVID restrictions, all those go away when we hit 70%. And so, I mean, it's just about getting back to as close to a normalcy as possible. And of course, still continuing to protect the population, and particularly our children,
absolutely,
who are susceptible to the Delta variant. And so the more of us that are vaccinated, the safer our kids are, and the more likely it is that we'll get back to school in a semi-normal fashion in the fall, which is so important. When we're going to get to 75%, that's a real challenge. We put up basically a estimation of when you might get to 75% using data from the CDC, and unfortunately, that data is not exactly the same as the state data, and it's not that it shows a largely different number of vaccines, but it shows that there's more residents waiting on a second dose. So there's more people who are partially vaccinated. And so what that means is that then those people who are waiting on a second dose are going to get their second dose. And so you're going to get to the 75% or 70% more quickly. And anyway, using that analysis, we get to 75% sometime in October.
Okay.
But that depends on the pace of vaccinations. And right now we're averaging about between 2,000 and 3,000 vaccines every day. If we're able to maintain that, and that's the challenge. That's what the state's dealing with, trying to get out into the schools and get out into and to encourage people to continue to uptake the vaccine.
Yeah, I know there's been periods of times where we haven't ordered lately because it's been going slower.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to hear. I didn't realize that we had a higher level of people who are waiting on the second dose. And it sounds to me like waiting by choice at this point.
Well, so I mean, that just means they got a first dose already, right? So now they're waiting. I mean, they're not waiting, but there's at least a 3-week window.
Okay.
Right? There's a window between when you get the first and the second. So all that means is that in the CDC data, there's more people who have received one dose And so when they get their second dose, they'll be fully vaccinated and count towards that. And that's just a small discrepancy in the data that makes it more difficult for us to sort of estimate when we'll get to 70 or 75%. And again, it all depends on behavior and what happens to the rate of vaccination. And it has fallen very, very substantially. If you look at the data back in, say, March and April, we were averaging close to 10,000 vaccines a day, and now we're averaging about 2,000. We've already vaccinated the people who are super eager and relatively easy to get to, and now we're dealing with a lot of the reluctance is showing up. Obviously, it's geographic. It's by all different types of classes, but it's also very much concentrated in the younger adults, and they're harder to reach. Not physically, but to reach in order to convince them. And some things may change in that front. It's possible that if and when, or when and if the vaccine is no longer an emergency use authorization, it may very well become mandatory for public schools, just like many other vaccines are, and that will impact our uptake.
Yeah.
As you know, the University of Hawaii has announced that it will be required to be on campus once it's no longer an emergency use authorization, but a regular use authorization.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had heard that, but as you say, everything continues to move. And I know originally there was hopes, that we would be closer this summer.
Yes.
Yes. And we're finding, it's slow. There's a lot of efforts. For those who waited, boy, if you're just getting vaccinated now, lots of great opportunities, discounts and prizes. And, I was laughing. I said, I think those people are smarter than us. Some of us got vaccinated really early and these guys waited. But honestly, I truly believe that, it's so important for us to get vaccinated and actually not wait to protect not only ourselves, but our family, our friends, our coworkers, and especially our children. I've got my daughter here with several friends right now visiting from Missouri, and she said over there, because the vaccination rate in that population is so low, that they're now seeing a spread of the Delta variant.
Yeah. Missouri is a hotspot right now for the new Delta variant, and one of the big motivators, or a motivator, is inter-island travel. And, if you go back far enough, of course, people were paying money for COVID tests to travel inter-island. And my daughter's headed over to Maui for the rodeo and, doesn't have to deal with any of that with the new rules. She's fully vaccinated and is completely comfortable traveling. And so there's lots of incentives for getting the vaccination. And I think we're going to get there. As you said, it's just not going to happen quite as fast as we would have liked.
Well, we look forward to getting there because, like you said, the restrictions keep opening up. Our travel, for those of us who live in the state, is easing up, which is really nice. And we're continuing to see a nice recovery, but we're still hampered by those restrictions in our businesses.
Yep.
And they're still trying to catch up on all of the debt and the revenue loss that they saw during this time. Speaking of that, let's move into sharing a little bit about Hawaii's economic recovery, where we're at today, what it's taken to get here, and what are you thinking about the coming future? Yeah,
so I wish our crystal ball was as clear as we would all like. I know, you mentioned how fast things are changing, and that's been true since all the way back in February of 2020, right? You do a whole bunch of analysis and research and really kind of come up with your best guess of how people are going to behave in terms of responding to the pandemic, and you come out with a forecast, and then 2 weeks later something's completely different, right? Either the COVID case counts have surged, or and then later, of course, then you had the surge in vaccination rates, and so everything's constantly in flux. And nobody and even came close to anticipating the kind of speed with which the U.S. would get to as high a level of vaccination as we are, and the comfort level that people would have with traveling again at this point in the recovery.
Yeah.
If you go back and 8 months ago and looked at the surveys that were being done of people's intentions to travel, none of that suggested that we would be where we are now, where we're looking at scheduled air seats coming into the island surpassing previous peaks.
Yeah.
The bookings rate out into all the way through August exceeding previous peaks. And so there's been a enormous, very quick short-term recovery that, as you said, is still about catching up in the sense of recovering lost revenue, paying off back rents, and it hasn't yet shown up in the broadest indicators of the overall economy. So if you look at the last forecast that we released, we're doing scenarios still because of the uncertainty, and if you look at the visitor numbers, I think we're very likely to hit for the year our optimistic scenario for Maui County and probably for the state as well. And yet, we're probably not going to hit the optimistic scenario on employment.
Right.
We haven't seen the job recovery that you would go along with that, and there's 25 different reasons, explanations, and questions about why the job recovery is as it is. In the latest data, we've seen rapid job growth in accommodations. There was for Maui County, we saw the biggest jump in jobs early on with the reopening, and then it has slowed down pretty significantly. We saw about 7,000 jobs in April and almost no job gains in May. And yet in May, the accommodation sector added almost 2,000 jobs. And so it's just going to be hit or miss, and you have to expect that will accelerate in the coming months, and particularly as some of the restrictions, begin to be diminished, and as people are able to find childcare, and as schools start to reopen, and as the unemployment benefits start to diminish, all of those will contribute to job gains. But we also have to keep in mind that we probably lost labor force from retirements, from people moving. So it's essentially, things are roaring back faster than anybody anticipated, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And there's a way to go on the overall economy and the subsectors that got hurt the hardest, hurt the worst.
Yeah, you and I have talked before about this trickle-down effect, and, all the way down to the hair salon that I go to, where the woman, said, well, first of all, with social distancing, I can only use one of my 3 chairs, and then I said, well, do you do a lot of visitor haircuts? Because she's down in South Maui, and she said, actually, I don't. I only do local residents. But she said when when the men are coming in, they used to come in once a week, and now they're coming in maybe once a month, sometimes every 2 months. And women are taking longer to cut their hair and do their hair. And, she was devastated, by other effects, not the direct effects from the visitor industry that we talk about with other more directly related industries. So, it's been a huge challenge. The biggest concern, as you point out, that we hear all the time is people are trying to find workers and get workers to come back to work, and we're just seeing that lag. And so hopefully we'll start to see that improve soon. Childcare is a big issue, which you mentioned. And so once school gets back in, I guess this fall, I think we'll hopefully see something a little bit different. But it's a huge challenge right now. And on that front, we have another big challenge that I know you're well versed in, which is in addition to what we're seeing with the labor market, we've got big challenges with rental cars. And so we're seeing short-term vacation rentals issues as well, housing costs rising. So there's a lot of things that we're trying to tackle here in Maui County, and places are doing so as, everybody across the state also has a housing crisis. But I wanted you to talk a little bit more about what do you see happening with these challenges here in Maui County, and where do you see solutions?
Yeah, so you highlighted many of the most difficult short-term challenges, and some of them are very long-term challenges, like the housing and the short-term vacation rental. And so let's start with the rental car one for a second. I think it gives a good sort of juxtaposition to the other ones.
Yes.
So in many cases, markets work very, very well. And what we're seeing right now are, in a whole variety of areas, are sort of short-term supply constraints and bottlenecks that it's not reasonable to expect that they would be eliminated or the problems would be solved immediately, right? Mm-hmm. It takes time for these things but with the shortages that are created and the rising prices, that creates all kinds of incentives for people to figure out smart ways to fix the problem. And of course, with car rentals, one of the things that may be happening, I don't have hard evidence on this, but you may see more residents using Toro or other online platforms to share their cars.
We definitely are.
The other thing that I have casually looked at those sites just to see. Well, I made a trip to the Big Island and, of course, had a hard time getting a car, and so looked around there. Certainly seemed like there were a lot of cars available on those sites. And the other thing that I know is happening from news stories is that, not the major car rental companies necessarily, but smaller independent car rental companies may actually be going into the used car market, buying cars, refurbishing them, and then renting them. And I know of people who've had car rental companies trying to buy their cars.
Yes.
And so those are market solutions that are driven by the higher rental prices, and eventually that supply will be solved. Now, in contrast, in housing, the higher prices, it is an incentive to deliver more units, to build more housing, but the lag time there is a combination of pure market lag time, which just simply takes time to ramp up. So even if you've got entitled land and you want to build more, it takes some months to get those houses started and then completed. And then there's the more onerous lags associated with needing to get land entitled and get all the permissions, and so it can take years, if not decades in some cases, to get new housing provided. And so yes. The supply response is extremely muted, and so you don't get the solutions that you would normally get from the market, and much of it is because of the regulatory environment.
Right.
And so the housing situation is a much longer slog, and the key really is, how do we get more houses produced? Period. And in the short-term vacation rental is potentially aggravating that. Right. There's pretty good research nationally that shows that areas that have high concentrations of short-term vacation rentals, usually they're focused on the Airbnb data because that's what's available, but it holds more broadly with some of the research that it finds that if you have a high concentration of those, it tends to drive up rents, and it tends to drive up prices, and it tends to reduce supply of housing.
Right.
And these studies are being done on places that have much lower concentrations of short-term vacation rentals than Maui does.
Right.
But again, that's a regulatory question, right?
Yeah.
Does the county enforce its existing rules? Maui County has a very large number of short-term vacation rentals, and they're back.
Yeah.
If you look at the data for April, we're basically back to the same level of supply of those units as was the case in April of 2019. And actually, April of 2019 wasn't even the peak.
Right.
Maui added another 1,000 or so, maybe 1,500 units between April of 2019 and December of that year. And so, the regulatory environment there matters, the tax rates matter, and that's another issue that is going to take time.
Yes.
So I know I didn't provide any great answers. It's more about discussion because certainly in terms of the car rental, it will work itself out. Again, except there could end up being regulatory changes as well, right? There could be changes that drive up the cost of rental cars out of a desire to get visitors out of rental cars and into vans, for example. So we'll see where that goes. There's a lot of pressure to address the crowding that we're seeing as well.
Yes, absolutely. And and I'm glad you mentioned about those increase in short-term rental units, because we have seen this. And the other thing is we're seeing more creative ways of going around it. Not every short-term rental is on Airbnb or VRBO or those things. There's often private management involved, and so it's getting trickier and trickier to identify, those who are doing it legally or those who are doing it illegally. Well, I'm sorry, reverse. It's easy to identify those who are doing it legally. It's getting trickier on the illegal side. But no, I appreciate you sharing all that. These are long-term solutions, but we do need to address on housing our regulatory environment, especially now as we're seeing all of the costs to go into housing, all of the supplies going up exponentially, particularly lumber, but a lot of things. So the longer we wait, the higher the prices go, and the less affordable they become. Carl, so great to have you on this morning. Thank you for joining us. We'd love to have you on again, and you're always so insightful. Just for our listening audience, tell everybody where they can find those amazing reports.
If you just Google UHERO, that's one way. That's UHERO, or you can find it at www.uhero.hawaii.edu.
Awesome. Thank you, Carl, for joining us this morning. I hope you have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thank you. Aloha. We're going to now hear a word from our sponsor, Mokulele Airlines.
Mokulele Airlines operates the largest commuter airline hub in the country, right here in Kahului. Fly Mokulele from Kahului to Molokai, Lanai, Hana, Waimea, Kona, and now Hilo. Mokulele also operates the only flights between Kapalua and Honolulu. There is never a middle seat on Mokulele, and every seat has a window and aisle. Visit mokuleleairlines.com and take your next flight from the newly renovated Mokulele Terminal.
Okay, we're back. If you're tuning in, you're listening to Business Matters, brought to you by the Maui Chamber of Commerce, Mokulele Airlines, and Sherry Reeve Gallery and Gifts. It's now my pleasure to welcome the General Manager and President and Director of the Board of the Maui Ocean Center Marine Institute, Tapani. I'm going to have Tapani. Tapani, good morning. I'm going to have you pronounce your last name for me, just so we get it correct.
Yeah, good morning, Pam, and good morning to all of your listeners. It was a pleasure hearing from Carl. My last name, Vuori, that would be a simple way to say it, but I'm flexible, whatever works for everyone.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I want to tell everybody a little bit about you, Tapani Vuori, so that's good. Thank you. Tapani was born in Finland, and after serving in the military, he arrived in the U.S. to pursue higher education. In 1987, he earned a bachelor's degree in political science from the University of California in Los Angeles. He currently resides in Kahului with his wife, Ellen, and their dog Humu, and enjoys spending time with his family and exercising, including golfing and swimming in the ocean. So I am so excited to have you on, Tapani, because one of the key things that we've been thinking about is, with all that was going on with COVID, with the shutdowns and the reopening, we kept wondering, how's Maui Ocean Center doing when we couldn't go? So can you share a little bit with us this morning on how Maui Ocean Center made it through?
Sure, I'll be very happy to, It's been definitely a very difficult time for a lot of people, not only in our state, in our nation, and globally. A lot of loss of life and, difficulties for many, many people, and we still are faced with some challenges. But at the same time, from a organizational viewpoint, it really has been an opportunity to really, revisit and really redefine our operating model and create a paradigm shift how we operate. So, not to minimize the difficulties and the challenges and the loss of life, but from a business standpoint, it really has opened a entire new ecosystem or environment where we operate, and I can talk a little bit more about that. But for us, we were closed 306 days altogether.
Wow.
We closed March 18th in 2020. We were able to open January 18th, and we slowly have been increasing our capacity, always operating under state of Hawaii and Maui health guidelines. As a matter of fact, we are still operating under limited capacity, and hopefully there will be some guidance from our local government pretty soon for further reopening in a safe manner. That is my hope personally. It was really difficult for me personally because I had to lay off not quite, but almost 100 people off when we shut down. And fortunately, I'm happy to report to everyone that we are back to that, if not even a little bit more as of today, as our employee or team roster. And I expect us to continue hiring. As everyone knows, there's a lot of demand right now. So it's been an interesting, wild journey in that sense. But the main difference for us from the operational viewpoint really has been that we used to, as many of your listeners know, we used to have open access. You could walk into the Ocean Center anytime you wanted. But that has now changed, where we actually are requiring a pre-arrival reservation online. This also, fulfills the state of Hawaii requirement, so that we are also collecting tracing information. Early on, I really mandated, actually it was April 15th, that everyone here was vaccinated, and after a lot of soul searching and discussing the issue with attorneys as well, and I decided that our collective safety, really trumped my personal freedom to a degree, of course. And ultimately, everyone actually saw a lot of value in it, and everybody chose to do that.
Nice.
And I did a lot of discussions with everyone here who was here at that time, and I'm very happy that everyone supported that. And so we took it extremely seriously, especially from the beginning to the point where we were open. I personally had to escort some people out of the park because they refused to wear a mask. So, it was a little bit challenging in that regard. But overall, I'm sure we have all heard these stories, but it's been quite a journey in that sense.
Yeah, it has, and we, unfortunately, we continue to hear some of the stories.
Yeah.
Stores and locations are saying, for the most part, everybody is complying. For the most part, our visitors are very gracious and happy to wear the mask and appreciative of everything that we're doing here in our community to keep Maui safe.
Yeah.
And
that's
everyone's
the overriding principle for me. We need to stay safe. We are on an island here, and with limited resources, so we need to take this seriously.
And how is the reservation system going? How are people reacting to this new advanced reservation system?
Actually, quite good. People are used to it, getting used to it. We still have, a certain amount of people coming, walking up, but we'll take care of everyone. We'll accommodate them by doing reservations on the spot if we need to. That's providing, of course, that we have space available. As I mentioned earlier, we have limited capacity still. We are operating under limited capacity. So Currently, usually morning hours tend to be sold out. So any of the listeners, if you're looking to visit Maui Ocean Center, come middle of the day or preferably towards the afternoon. You have a lot more flexibility in terms of timing, and it's a little bit less crowded than I would highly recommend for all our Kama'aina listeners. Actually, July 4th, we are going to make an announcement where we are going to drastically reduce our Kama'aina annual membership. So it's really a no-brainer at that time to, we call it, Na Hawkeye Kama'aina annual membership, and that would really provide you a lot of mileage to come and visit us. We have so many new things here. Many people have not seen different things like the holographic humpback experience inside the sphere. I'm sure many people have seen the white sphere by the road going to Lahaina. And yes. We have a beautiful, beautiful exhibit on Kaholave, or Kanaloa. And we also have a very nice exhibit on Papahana Mokuake. And we just completed this week a plastic marine debris exhibit. Right after that, about 3 years ago, I had asked NOAA on one of their annual sailings when they sail to Papahanaumakuakea. I asked them to bring in plastic marine debris for us, so they brought several pallets of plastic debris for us. And unfortunately, we were unable to execute it prior to COVID, but now we have completed it. It's actually quite emotional, quite impactful, because in that plastic mess, you see personal items such as toothbrushes, plastic water bottles, you name it. So I really wanted to personally make sure that there's that connection to our lives, and it's quite visceral in a sense that we all understand that we all have a part and responsibility to play here. So it's our koleana.
That's fascinating. I unfortunately, I had always planned, and COVID actually hit, but I haven't seen the whale exhibit myself.
Oh, really? Oh, my God.
And I'm dying.
You have to
come. I'm definitely going to come. Excuse me. And I appreciate you mentioning this new Kama'aina program. I really take that to heart, because especially now when businesses are suffering, it's hard to, as we're recovering and we still have back-owed rents and mortgages and revenue loss to generate, it's harder and harder to give discounts, but it's nice that you're creating a program just for the Kama'aina so that they can connect. And I love hearing about all of these new exhibits.
Yeah, it's, really everything, our philosophy, or my philosophy really, is that we need to add value to our local community. So everything we do, it has to really add value. When I think about our existence and our reason for being here, so how do we do that? I mean, it's a little bit more nuanced than just providing low cost, for access. Educational extensions. We are working quite a lot on the watershed issues here in Malaya, in the Ahupua here. I'm personally involved with the wastewater issues in Malaya community here. I'm a board member with the Malaya Village Association, and we are also hopeful in the community that many of your listeners know the Spencer land here by the hillside. So our hope is that gets converted to a public trust land here in the near future. How wonderful would that be for our keiki and our grandchildren, our mopuna, to have that there in perpetuity. And it's about legacy. How do we leave this place in a better shape after we are gone?
I agree. I'm a big believer in legacy and legacy projects. So I love hearing that as well. I don't know if you got to go out and visit. I was out a couple of weeks ago at the Kihei waste treatment plant, and a plant that I'm very familiar with, it's called Vedavir, is being used to clean the water up outside of. Did you get to see that?
Yeah, I did not personally have a chance. I had a conflict with my schedule, but I saw that, and I'm aware of the plant there. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see the trial and see how it works because having done some research years ago on that plant, I really think it could be amazing and a great new solution for us and very environmentally
Yeah, there's
friendly.
a lot of exciting developments in technology in terms of infrastructure happening, and again, I keep coming back. The Hawaiians really had the right saying, we are all in the same canoe here. So. Let's make sure that we take care of it. And, let's look at these infrastructure issues and sustainability issues. What is sustainable? I mean, I think Mayor is going to have a press conference later on today, talking about the sustainable tourism and what is sustainable for our communities. So we should certainly have these conversations. And, obviously tourism is an important part of it, but there's so much more that goes into our quality of life, and how do we make happy, livable, communities for ourselves and our community.
Yes, absolutely. So, Tapani, is there more that you can share with us about what's going on at the Maui Ocean Center?
Well, we have a lot of, we've really changed, everything, 180 degrees. When I became a GM here, general manager, about 6 years ago, and I really saw a need. I have been here since 2002, so I'm very familiar with how we've operated in the past. And I always felt that there was an opportunity to really talk about a lot of these issues, sustainability and environmental issues. In the opening, you mentioned the president of MOCMI, Maui Ocean Center Marine Institute. I am that as well, and we started the nonprofit about 4 years ago, and that is actually based on three foundational pillars. Number one, we have a turtle rescue facility here, and we also are the turtle stranding responder on the entire island of Maui. So if any of the listeners, if you happen to see a stranded or injured turtle, please call us. We usually respond right away. We work very, very closely with federal government, with NOAA on that, and NOAA actually shut down their operations in respect to turtle rehabilitation and rescues. So right now they're actually airlifting all the injured turtles to us, so we are rehabilitating them here in our facility, and we are a fail-safe location for them. The other initiative there is we have, under our care, we have a coral repository of rare Hawaiian endemic corals.
Wow.
We work very closely with the state of Hawaii, DLNR, and they have a coral lab on Sand Island, on Oahu. And the long-term purpose for this is to safeguard rare Hawaiian endemic corals. And we have ability to go and restore coral reefs as of today. We actually do quite a lot of work in different harbors and different areas where there have been damage. And then the third final pillar is really making sure we have an educational STEM outreach. I used to be a public school teacher a long, long time ago back in the old country, and kids are very close to my heart. And to me, it's really important that we provide access to resources especially for areas of our communities that may not have access to them as readily as some others. So it's about leveling the playing field for all the kids. So be on the lookout for additional news and additional things coming up. We are really going to focus more and more into these kinds of initiatives as we go forward.
I think that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Thank you for the upcoming announcement. We're going to all pay attention. July 4th, big announcement. But also in the meantime, remember the reservation system if you're looking at going. Tapani, we have loved having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be watching to hear about your latest and greatest.
Thank you, Pam. It was great, and thank you for all of your listeners. Everybody have a great summer. Aloha.
Aloha. Have a wonderful day. This show is sponsored by Sherry Reef Gallery and Gifts. Sherry is a renowned watercolorist who offers an array of bright and beautiful art and gifts for every occasion. If you haven't gone to her gallery in historic Makawao Town, it's a real treat. So visit Sherry and her amazing team, and you'll find a lot of unique treasures. I'm now pleased to welcome a friend of mine who I've gotten to meet through the Made in Maui County Festival. It is Mitzi Toro. Mitzi is the owner and founder of the Maui Cookie Lady. She is the Maui Cookie Lady.
Hey, good morning, Pam. Great to hear your voice.
Good morning, Mitzi. So great to hear you. I just want to tell everybody, what makes your cookies so unique is this infusion of tropical flavors, and it's all locally produced from high-quality ingredients. You have amazing combinations, and they're bold, they're inviting, they're unexpected. You're always reinventing. And what we always get in every bite is your dedication to quality. Mitzi, I'm so thrilled to have you on the show this morning because you've always got interesting news because you're always innovating.
Yeah, it's not a boring life to own your own business, that's for sure.
No, but you do it very well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, we've had a great year, and we've been growing. We finally, after many years of requests, opened up our own shop. I was really nervous to do it and hesitant, but the right location came up, and we just jumped at the chance. And a little bit of a head turner because we did it right in the middle of a pandemic. But that ended up being a blessing for us because it kind of, starting off slow, gave us time to really figure everything out in our systems and kind of, because I've never owned a store before. It was a learning curve, but it's been a lot of fun. It's been a great success so far.
And tell people, I have to tell you that I got to see Mitzi shop the other day, and it wasn't what I was expecting. It is so adorable. I was expecting bold pink and black like the logo. Tell everybody about your inspiration and how you hired people who were out of work at the time to help you design and create this amazing space.
Yeah. I wanted it someplace that was going to be magical and memorable. A lot of people don't know, but my company started as a fundraiser for my father who passed away. It was just supposed to be 4 months. We were going to dedicate the money to the ICU nurses at Maui Memorial, and that was going to be it. But people kept asking, so we grew our business, and that is the origins of our business, is really from my dad and celebrating his memory. My dad is from Germany. So he came to this country knowing very little English and didn't, have a lot of money, kind of the typical, chasing the American dream. And he did it. He was able to make a wonderful life here in Makawao. That was his favorite store, the store we moved into, because it had a big giant clock on the outside. And so we just kind of wanted to make it like, we call ourselves cookie elves. So we just kind of wanted to make it like a little cookie elf, Hobbit type, fairy tale cafe experience. I love Willy Wonka as well. So we have some Willy Wonka, which was also filmed in Germany, some Willy Wonka, flair throughout the cafe. But it was for kids, to come in. And I love to see their faces. And it was a lot of fun. And we opened up right before Christmas, which is our busy time. And the theater has been down. So I was able to hire quite a few theater people who are, not working to help me kind of bring my vision to life. I kind of generally knew what I wanted to do, but it was this incredible team that has worked at the different theater productions around the island. It was that just jumped in and helped me. It was a win-win all around.
It is absolutely adorable, and I love the cookie elves. But also the work that's done, the creative painting to bring this space to life is really remarkable. And also, I learned that in addition to the cookies, but of course I do want to have you talk about your new flavors because you've always got something new, but you also have a new drink product.
Yeah, we make our own fresh lemonade, freshly squeezed. It's in biodegradable bottles, and it's just organic sugar, lemon, very simple ingredients, triple filtered water, and we know lemonade and cookies. We never thought about it, but they do go hand in hand, and it's been doing really well. It's not super sweet, which is great, kind of balances out a sweet cookie. And when we're realizing when we first opened, we just wanted a place to sell our cookies, but it has been an opportunity to support other local vendors, and we have been able to bring in a lot of great, awesome vendors that are doing really well. We have 3 local ice cream companies. We have a cotton candy. We've Hawaii made popcorn and honey. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been great, and we have just we're still kind of finalizing details, but we have a really incredible chocolatier coming in that's Hawaii based. So we're excited.
It really is a great treasure, and I love that you mentioned, I'm a big Willy Wonka fan too, so I love that you've got that inspiration there as well, and I love that you've found a way to bring in chocolate into the, you're bringing in chocolate, you're bringing in other goodies, and it does kind of have that feel when you walk in. It is, of course, the fabulous cookies, but there are other amazing little treasures as you look around that you can find and done in very cute ways. Tell us about what is your hottest cookie right now, if you can, because I'm sure there's many, and what are some of the new flavors that you've been developing?
Well, we have 2 cookies that sold really well this year. One we just phased out, but we're thinking about bringing back, which is the Anuhea Upcountry Breeze. This was my first collaboration, and it's with the well-known Hawaiian singer Anuhea Jam. It was something that actually all the key flavors she came up with that she loved, and it was so good. It was supposed to be just a limited edition, but we've had somebody requesting me bring it back. It's got Ali'i Kula lavender from the Lavender Farms. We have macadamia nuts from Waihe'e Valley, Hawaiian sea salt. It's got white chocolate truffle center, and calamansi, island-grown calamansi, which gives it that tart, lemon edge. And then we do a lemon meringue drizzle with lavender-infused sugar on top. And I know it's really beautiful floral, showcases a lot of Hawaii. The other one we're really excited. We've been working with Kaloa Rum Company on Hawaii. Bob is a friend of mine from many years ago when I worked in the public school system. His son came through the school I worked at, and so he's now the CEO of the rum company, and he sent me over a big case of rums to work with. And so we just created, and it's incredible, it's called Kaloa Colada. It has a Kaloa coconut rum. It has a pina colada puree, a toasted coconut, pineapple, Hawaiian sea salt, and raw sugar. It's really floral, light. It's tropical, kind of seems like a summer cookie, so it was great timing for us to bring that out. And our other big hit, which I was really excited, made in National Magazine, is the Nutella Strawberry. So it's mostly a hazelnut paste. We bring that hazelnut paste in, but it's got a dark velvet cocoa. We do a hazelnut ganache in the center, and then a strawberry chocolate reduction on top.
For those of you listening, if your mouth is not watering like mine is, I mean, as you just listen to these, first of all, listen to how complicated these recipes are. I mean, you are really, I know in the drink world they call it a mixologist, but I mean, you are really blending so many different flavors. You must have an amazing palate to combine all these very unique and distinct flavors together to make these, outstanding cookies, the likes of which we've never seen before. I mean, you just never see this. They're so special.
Thank you. And I think it's what inspires me, is just trying to create what hasn't been created before.
Isn't that the fun part? That's the fun part of being an entrepreneur.
Yes. It is. And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But when they do, it's so much fun.
And everybody loves your cookies because they're so unique and different. And I've loved watching the transition as you continue to build out more and more flavors. How many varieties do you now carry on a regular basis?
So, good question. Our kitchen still is not very large. We're working on that. We're hoping to get another oven, but we can only produce about 12 at a time. So that's why our limited editions are a short span, because we just don't have the kitchen space.
Yep.
But they usually run about a month or a month and a half long. We're getting ready for a lot of our fall flavors, so we're going to be phasing out many of the summer flavors. that we have right now, probably in the next 3 or 4 weeks. So this would be a great time to come and grab some cookies before, fall winter menu is released. But we probably do about 12 at any one time. But since we started, we've been in business almost 9 years. We've done over 200 varieties.
Wow.
And we keep coming up with, you would think we've done it all, but we still keep coming up with different varieties that we're excited to introduce and work with.
So amazing, Mitzi. Absolutely amazing. And so I love that you mentioned the fall flavors coming out. So I want to tell people the way to find out about what Mitzi's doing, if you don't know, and many of you, of course, do. You follow her in her social media avenues. But that's the way to find out, because sometimes there's little tricky announcements of things coming soon, like the opening of her store was a little bit of it was a little low key and made people wonder what the heck is going on, and then find the new store. But that's also where you find out what's happening with the varieties and when the new editions are coming out.
Yeah, we have also one. If it's the listeners are local, if you come in with a canned good, we're doing an ongoing food drive to feed our community. We do food bags. So if you bring in any one non-perishable item, we will give you a discount off your entire order. That is not limited. We will continue to do that because there's always a need to feed our community, and that's been really wonderful to have that storefront to be able to do that. Another initiative we've done for 2 years is I am a former public school teacher, so I saw a need for flip-flops in the school system. And we did a brand, like a nonprofit, but not officially. But we collected brand new flip-flops for our schools. My goal was to get one case to every school on Maui County Island. And
awesome.
We hit that goal pretty soon. We're on our 3rd round, and we'll be collecting slippers again for our public school system. So we're excited to roll that out, and you could just drop them off at the store. All sizes are, appreciated. For sure, the bigger sizes and gender-neutral colors are most in need.
Thank you so much, Mitzi. Mitzi, I have loved having you on the show today. You can see Mitzi at her great new store in Makawao Town and find her online. Unfortunately, this is all the time we have today for Business Matters. The program always goes quick. Thanks, Mitzi, for joining us.
It's so great to be here.
It's great to have you. We are sponsored by Mokulele Airlines and Sherry Reeve Gallery and Gifts. I'm your host, Pamela Tumpa, president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, wishing you blessings and best wishes for a beautiful Maui day. Aloha.